Remember when a cup of coffee or a slice of pizza could be bought with spare change? These days, it still might not cost a restaurant much to make, but those savings aren't exactly being passed on to you. With an average cost of only 25 to 30% of menu prices, breakfast foods are some of the most profitable items that restaurants sell. And what's breakfast without eggs? Throughout 2025, the price of eggs has been volatile.
Because of this bird flu outbreak, we're continuing to see productivity take a hit. And what that means is that it's hampering egg production.
But even with skyrocketing egg prices, restaurants can still make a lot off of them. Unlike a lot of other foods, eggs are usually served on their own or with other cheap breakfast staples like hash browns or pancakes. And the only extra ingredient most eggs need to cook are butter or oil, salt, and maybe a few other kitchen staples. On top of that, they take very little time to prep, so chefs and line cooks usually aren't breaking their backs to get your brunch ready to serve. Some places might even charge a lot more for things like omelets, which typically only require a few more ingredients or a little more attention. We get it. Something about this noise just makes soda taste better. And nothing goes with a nice dinner quite like a crisp, refreshing glass of pop. But if you want to get your money's worth, you'd better hope a restaurant is liberal with that free refill policy. Both soda and ice cost a fraction of what most restaurants charge for them, so they're a huge moneymaker for a lot of businesses. To produce fountain soda, eateries only need a soda syrup, water, and carbon dioxide gas for carbonation. Places that sell these in large volumes, and chains in particular, probably buy their syrup and CO2 in bulk, so their costs are even lower. What might cost you a few dollars is probably only running the store a few cents. That's not to say you shouldn't order soda next time you go out. What shows up on your bill may be covering some other expenses as well, like disposable cups, lids, straws, labor, and other overhead. Plus, what restaurants make on fountain drinks might come back to you in the form of lower prices on other menu items. In 2025, the average cost of a pound of dried spaghetti sits at a little less than $1.40. Now, 1 pound makes a whole lot of pasta, so it's safe to assume the overhead at that Italian chain your parents take you to is quite a bit lower than the prices listed on the menu. And while plenty of restaurants make homemade pasta, even the ingredients that calls for are generally pretty affordable. Sure, the price of eggs has gone up quite a bit, but they're still relatively affordable compared to some meats or nice vegetables. And of course, flour and water aren't that hard to come by either. In fairness, pasta dishes usually require other ingredients like oil, cheese, spices, and things like vegetables or meats that add to the restaurant's costs. But many restaurants use pasta dishes as a way to move produce approaching the end of its shelf life anyway, so even then they might be saving a bit. And while some pasta dishes are fairly time-consuming or require a lot of prep, risotto, for example, needs almost constant attention, the overall cost of ingredients is still fairly low compared to what customers are paying. Then again, pasta is one of those things that always tastes a little bit better when someone else makes it for you. So that experience alone might be worth a few extra dollars. Even though no one in the kitchen is really making it, restaurants usually still make a solid profit on bottled water by buying it wholesale. A 2023 study reported that wholesale domestic, non-sparkling water costs an average of $1.44 per gallon. Now, if the average diner drinks roughly 8 ounces of water with a meal, that 1 gallon could stretch as far as 16 people. And since serving that water doesn't require too much labor on the restaurant's part, that leaves a whole lot of room for a business to bring in some cash. Sparkling water gets even pricier. Since it requires more time and effort to carbonate the water, restaurants usually pass this increased expense onto the customer. Even at bars, club soda or sparkling water from the soda gun may run you a few extra dollars on top of that shot you ordered. Tap water, on the other hand, actually costs a restaurant money. It's usually free for the customer, so when you factor in the glassware and labor needed to serve it, plus the fact that someone needs to refill glasses and wash the dishes, the company is usually the one eating the cost. And that's on top of the water bill. But even if that tap water doesn't show up on your bill, keep in mind that it's still someone's job to serve it, so you might want to throw some of your savings back onto your tip at the end of the meal. Thanks to how affordable their basic ingredients are, salads can be a huge revenue generator for restaurants. Just picture a Caesar salad. It may come to the table looking like a full meal, but it's usually made up of just lettuce, cheese, croutons, dressing, and maybe some chicken. For popular salads like that, restaurants usually buy the ingredients at wholesale prices. And while the chopping, shredding, and mixing required to make a salad are more labor-intensive than some other menu items, the food cost is low enough and the menu prices are usually high enough to balance it out. But some salads may contain more high-end ingredients like organic produce, heirloom tomatoes, organic meat, or specialty ingredients that might be harder to get a bulk deal on. It's for this reason that you might see fancier places charge upwards of $50 for a salad topped with nicer protein. It may sound outrageous on paper, but if you want your lettuce with something like steak or lobster on top, odds are you'll be the one paying the difference. One of the priciest things both restaurants and their customers spring for is wine. Part of the reason for this is that it's one of the few items a restaurant probably won't buy in bulk, something that will definitely show up in the menu price. On top of that, restaurants also need to factor in both time and storage space, which will also contribute to the markup. If you do opt to purchase wine when dining out, we'd suggest going for a full bottle instead of just a glass. If only a few glasses worth of a bottle of wine gets sold, whatever's left in the bottle will probably go to waste. Restaurants are aware of this and tack on a little extra in their glass pricing to account for the risk. And when you do order a bottle, you may want to consider splurging. Funny enough, cheaper wines tend to get the highest markups, so a slightly more luxurious bottle might get you more bang for your buck even if you're spending a little extra. Another drink that helps keep restaurants liquid is coffee. Thanks to its low cost and easy prep, a cup of coffee might cost a restaurant, cafe, or coffee shop 15 or 20 cents to make, but you'll probably wind up paying several dollars or more. And that markup also affects coffee's more stuck-up cousin, espresso. A 2024 study revealed that the average price for a latte in America was right around $5.50. And sure, the milk and sweeteners that get added to many of these coffee drinks will definitely add up in terms of what a restaurant spends. But even when you factor in that and labor costs, there's still usually a sizable markup passed on to the customer. Unfortunately, that trend isn't going anywhere soon. In fact, we'll probably continue seeing the prices for most varieties of coffee go up due to both the increasing cost of coffee and supply chain issues. Just remember, next time you pay $7 for a cold brew or mocha, blame the industry at large, not the owner of your local cafe. Oh, and don't be this guy.
Tall is large, and grande is Spanish for large. Venti's the only one that doesn't mean large. It's also the only one that's Italian.
If they're the real deal, truffles are gonna run you a pretty penny no matter what. The finest black truffles can be between $300 and $800 per pound, while a pound of fine white truffles could easily run you thousands. That may sound like a lot for a glorified mushroom, but truffles are extremely rare. They need very specific conditions to grow, and even then, they only grow for a few months out of the year. And when they're in season, you need specially trained dogs or pigs to find them in the forest. They're also a bit of a time bomb.
Once harvested, a truffle won't ripen anymore, it won't change other than to lose moisture, and it's got a shelf life of 14 days.
The tricky thing is, when you see truffles on a menu, they might not come in fancy fungus form. A lot of truffle dishes at restaurants actually get their flavor from truffle oil, rather than fresh truffles themselves. That oil contains very little actual truffle, and sometimes even that will be replaced with a synthetic truffle flavor instead. So if your meal is topped with real shaved truffle, an exorbitant price tag might make sense. But if you're just getting some truffle fries topped with a little bit of flavored oil, they might not be worth the price tag. In the oyster eating world, luxury is the name of the game. A widely loved delicacy known for their briny, refreshing flavor, eating them is as much an experience as it is a snack. And while the price you'll normally pay for elaborate dishes like Oysters Rockefeller is usually about on par with the cost of ingredients and labor needed to make it, the price of shucked oysters is a different story. It's not uncommon to charge around $3 to $6 per oyster, though that will vary depending on the market, how they're harvested, and whether they're the smaller, brinier East Coast oysters or the larger and creamier West Coast variety. No matter which type is being served, oysters generally don't need that much prep work. The restaurant just needs to shuck and plate them, and make the cocktail sauce or whatever else it serves on the side. With such simple prep, eateries are almost always making a profit unless they're offering something like a happy hour deal. And in that case, they're probably raking it in on drinks anyway. With roughly 350 slices eaten every second, pizza is one of the most popular foods in the US. Like pasta, pizza is a low-cost, high-return menu item in most restaurants. The dough only requires a few basic ingredients, and the sauce uses affordable pantry staples like crushed tomatoes. While toppings like cheese are more expensive and can add up pretty quickly on a restaurant's tab, specialty pizzas tend to fetch a higher price, which will offset some of those losses. In fact, restaurants can often charge customers extra for toppings without actually needing to lose that much in terms of ingredients on their end. Pizza gets even more overpriced when it's sold by the slice. There's usually an added charge when you buy an individual slice instead of a whole pie, but whether or not it's worth the added convenience of not having to go about your day carrying a whole pizza is up to you. Where you are in the world will also impact how much you're paying. While a slice of pepperoni pizza might run you less than $5 in New York City, you could pay upwards of $9 in Alaska.
I'm gonna go get me a New York slice.
There's no better feeling than seeing a thick, juicy burger placed in front of you at a good restaurant. Even some of the nicest eateries out there will pull out all the stops on cheeseburgers, and they're probably making a hell of a profit while they're at it. The trick here is the ground beef. Even when it's formed into a perfect patty and cooked to a glorious medium rare, ground beef is usually pretty low cost compared to other beef items because it's often made from less desirable cuts of meat. And even better, for the restaurant at least, it's the most expensive burger component. The bun, condiments, and veggies are all pretty affordable at restaurant wholesale pricing, so a standard burger is pretty much a literal cash cow. Then, take the fancy add-ons like eggs and avocado that many places offer, and those costs can skyrocket for the customer while barely changing any metrics for the vendor. And what's a burger without fries? While many restaurants include them as a side, it feels like more and more places are making them a separate charge these days. Tack on a soda or a beer, and your burger bill will add up a lot quicker than you may realize. Speaking of French fries, keeping them as a separate item for purchase isn't the only way restaurants make money off everyone's favorite starchy sticks. Root vegetables like potatoes and onions are gold mines for eateries. You'll be hard-pressed to find a pound of wholesale onions for more than $1, and potatoes aren't much more than that. Lucky for the culinary world, those ingredients are the foundation of extremely popular side dishes like French fries and onion rings. The other ingredients they call for, salt, oil, and maybe some breading, are also super cheap. And on top of all that, neither onion rings nor fries really take much time or work to prepare. They're fast and delicious, and are a surefire way to get money in a restaurant's pockets.